And you have been looking live and watching with us here on NewsNation as President Biden is giving remarks, which appear to be concluded, over at NATO headquarters, or here in Washington, an address rather, to NATO leaders. As questions remain here in Washington and across this country about whether President Biden should continue to be one of those world leaders. In Washington today, returning from their holiday break, Democratic lawmakers huddled behind closed doors to discuss, debate, and vent, with one Democrat reportedly saying, quote, "It felt like a funeral." Afterwards, the top Democrat on the Hill, Chuck Schumer, says he backs the president, but would not stray from this one talking point.
As I've said before, I'm with Joe. As I've said before, I'm with Joe.
But Senator Schumer, doesn't it leave Democrats in a...
But tonight, another Democratic lawmaker has just come out to say that she believes the president should not go forward with his candidacy. Congresswoman Mickey Sherrill of New Jersey writing, quote, "I am asking that he declare that he won't run for re-election and will help lead us through a process toward a new nominee." That is now 7 elected House Democrats who have come forward to tell President Biden to step aside.
He just has to step down because he can't win, and my colleagues need to recognize that.
Now, the questions are beyond if President Biden can beat Donald Trump. It is also this: is he fit to serve? With those questions continuing over at the White House, the press secretary saying today that the president does not need to be tested for signs of dementia.
It's the president's medical team that makes the decision. We are not, with all due respect, you're not a doctor, I'm not a doctor. It is the president's medical unit that makes a decision on what the president needs.
But has the president been able to stop the pushback from within his own party? That is the big question here in Washington tonight, and it is where we begin here on the Hill on NewsNation. Thanks for being with us. I'm Blake Berman. Joining us live here, starting the Hill, Congressman Aen Claus, a Democrat from Massachusetts. Congressman, thanks for being with us here on the Hill, waiting patiently as we were listening there to President Biden address the NATO leaders here from Washington. You believe that the president should stay in the race. Explain to me why.
Good evening, Blake. Thanks for having me on. World leaders are in Washington right now, and I think out of respect for the president's focus on foreign policy, whereas he had a successful first term, we need to push mute on domestic politics for the rest of the NATO summit. We need to allow the commander-in-chief to focus on strengthening NATO at a time of peril globally, when Russia is continuing its brutal and unprovoked war on Ukraine, when China is increasingly belligerent in the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea, and where autocrats the world over are trying to threaten and undermine the rules-based international order. So we are going to have tough and... Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And normally the rule is, Congressman, when the president, as you know, goes abroad, you sort of put all the politics, domestic politics aside, but he's here at home. And there's real questions, Congressman, about his mental fitness. And there are going to be people who hear you say that, and they're going to say, oh, that's just a Democratic congressman trying to deflect.
It's not a Democratic congressman trying to deflect. It's a Democratic congressman demonstrating support, regardless of party, for the president when he's engaged with world leaders. And the adage that politics stops at the water's edge shouldn't be taken literally. It's not when he literally flies overseas. It's when he is engaged representing the United States as a country. And in that format, President Biden has always been at its strongest. He's drawing on 50 years of experience and wisdom and relationships with world leaders. He has demonstrated to the American people his prowess in rallying NATO, doubling its border with Russia, and ensuring that Ukrainians have what they need to defend against Russian advances. Now, I hope NATO now authorizes Ukraine to use NATO-made weapons to strike anywhere, anytime in Russia. I hope that we get more concordance on maritime sanctions to help cordon off Russian energy exports. And that is where the focus should be right now. We are going to have plenty of oxygen left in the room to talk about domestic politics, but right now it needs to be about foreign policy.
So I understand that's your position, Congressman, and I hear you and I appreciate it. But, you know, one of the reasons why I enjoy talking to you, you've been on this show a bunch, yeah, and for our audience here on NewsNation, or those listening to us on Sirius XM don't know, you have walked the walk, Congressman. You went to Harvard, you graduated, and instead of leaving Harvard and taking a big paycheck, you went to the Marines. You served. You put your life on the line. And that is part of the vantage point that you specifically have. And I wonder, Congressman Aen Claus, as a Marine, as someone who has served, when you look at the commander-in-chief who wants to be president into his mid-80s, if you believe he is physically capable and mentally able to do so.
Nobody can or should make a prognosis for an 81-year-old 5 years into the future. What I can say is I have seen his track record as commander-in-chief for the last 4 years. He ended a failed forever war that had gone on for 20 years that had cost $2 trillion and thousands of lives. He has rallied our allies to Ukraine's defense. He has walked a tightrope in the Middle East. He has put the United States in a stronger position relative to China for the first time in the 21st century. And I've seen this as a member of the Select Committee on China. So his track record is compelling, particularly in the foreign policy sphere. And it's one of the reasons why I think he's going to go down as a top 10 president in American history. Now, I understand that there are significant concerns about his mental acuity. My constituents have expressed those to me, and we are going to have the opportunity to have that conversation. But while he is engaged with world leaders at a NATO summit, we need to be strengthening his hands so that he can negotiate the best possible deal for the United States and for the free world.
Congressman Jake Aen Claus, Democrat from the state of Massachusetts. I'm sure we will talk to you again soon. We got to leave it there. Thank you for your time, sir. Come on back. Appreciate it.
Take care.
You got it. All right, joining me here on the Hill today, Scott Bolden, NewsNation political contributor, former chairman of the D.C. Democratic Party chairman. Aaron Perini is a Republican strategist. Brad Howard, former senior aide to House Democrats. And Mick Mulvaney, former Trump White House chief of staff, NewsNation contributor as well. Hello to you all. Nice to have you all in. So we started a couple minutes late here for a good reason, right? Mm-hmm. All eyes on President Biden as he delivers the address there to world leaders. And Mick, I heard from the congressman there, let's not criticize now.
Yeah.
And that, as I mentioned him, okay, is that a deflection? But there is a real conversation here in Washington today among Democrats as to whether or not he should move forward.
I'm a big fan of Jake's. I didn't serve with him, but everybody I know that's there thinks very highly of him, and he seems like
he's a star in the Democratic Party.
He really is. There's no question about it. But he said one thing that is just categorically false. Which is that he said, we shouldn't be in the business of trying to anticipate what an 81-year-old is going to look like in 5 years. That's exactly what we should be doing. I mean, that's the question right now. I mean, the next question, every time a Democrat goes on TV and says, I don't think President Biden should run for re-election, the next question should be, do you think he's qualified to be president today? That's a debate I don't think enough people are having yet. And a lot of the Democrats, you talk about deflecting, they don't want to have that conversation. It's the first thing that came to my mind after the debate is this gentleman, the man who's in the White House right now, capable of doing the job today? That's a fair question to have. And to say, well, we don't want to guess what's going to be done 5 years down the road is just sticking your head in the sand.
Well, every day that he continues to lead and continue to be the president and to perform, as you saw before NATO, right? He's proven to you that he's capable of doing that. Every president.
Tone shift out of you, Scott? Tone shift out of you? Because I've noticed you've been a little.
He's riding with Biden.
Are you riding with Biden like Jim Clyburn's saying? Because you have gone from pro-Biden to I've got lots of questions, and I don't know if I just heard a tone shift out of you. After Democrats met behind closed doors.
I don't remember what you're talking about.
So there we go.
My point right here is listen, Biden holds all the cards here. The Dems can meet all they want and have these discussions. Unless there's a ground well of support for him to step down, that he's not going anywhere. That's why the leadership says we're riding with Biden, because those 7 people have come out and they can wring their hands in these private meetings and stuff. But what's coming out of those meetings is they're riding with Biden. And you know what? As my mother used to say, there are no good decisions or bad decisions. They're just decisions, and you got to make them right. The Dems got to go make this decision to ride with Biden right.
What did you hear there out of the president? Because we are going to watch, and rightfully so, Aaron, every single word that this man and Donald Trump say over the next, 4 months or so.
Yeah.
When Joe Biden goes out and gives a performance like that, on script, on point, energy, I guess you could say, does that sort of bring more Scott Boldens back into the fold?
Apparently it has, and
I
reserving...
never left the fold. What are you all talking about?
You were on...
I have questions just like everyone
Okay,
else.
fair.
I mean, reserving the right to object to what you were saying here. It is a fallacy that man stands there every day and projects strength when all of the leaks coming out of his debate prep were 11 a.m. start time, afternoon naps. The man's truncating his schedule before 8 p.m. If you want to talk about strength and being a world leader and what Russia, Iran, China, our adversaries overseas see, they see weakness. And yes, can he read from a teleprompter at 81 years old and look angry? Even if you just watched it on mute, he looked angry and animated. That's not enough to fix that debate.
A poll came out today, Brad, state of Wisconsin, which shows part of the peril for the president and why you're seeing so many Democrats come out publicly and privately. It basically has him down a handful to Donald Trump, heads up, in a big swing state. But here's the other side of that poll. The Senate candidate, the incumbent in that state, is up by 5, and that shows down ballot Democrats running well ahead of the president in a crucial swing state.
For now. And here's the issue. I think what was such a shock from that debate was that swing voters, you're not going to see much of a movement on swing voters based on that debate, and we haven't seen, maybe a point or two. And the reason why swing voters are swing voters, because they've had concerns about his age from the beginning, right? They're flirting with Trump, but they don't like him. He lies. He says crazy stuff. But Biden's old, and that's why they're in the middle here. It was the base that saw for the first time in real time how old he was, and that shook us. Now, what's going to happen is, as this question gets asked to down-ballot Democrats, at a certain point, what voters see is going to mismatch what their Democratic elected officials are saying. And then when you ask the question, to your point, do you think he's capable and fit? If they have no reservations whatsoever, the voter's like, now I'm questioning your judgment.
Yeah, okay.
And so that becomes a down-ballot problem. I'm not saying it's there yet, and it may never be, but that's why you're starting to see the fact that even one Democrat came out and said we have concerns about our nominee against Donald Trump is massive. When you I know it's 7 out of 200 plus, but even you have one, it's a bad problem.
So let me end with this, Mick, because and put on your former White House Chief of Staff hat for a second. You wrote an article today in The Hill in which you said it's not what Joe Biden is saying, it's what the President of the United States is hearing. Explain your article and what you mean by that.
The president's the most isolated and insulated person in the world, and he relies heavily on his inner circle of advisors to keep him in touch with reality. And I know a lot of people are walking around saying, how can Biden even still think about staying in the race? If everyone around him is telling him, Joe, don't worry, it was fine, you'll be fine, you were just tired, you were poorly prepped, you had a cold. If that's what he's hearing, you should stay in the race. Then he's going to stay in the race. Everyone he knows and trusts is telling him the same thing. That's a very dangerous place for any president to be on any topic.
All right, still to come here from The Hill on NewsNation. Social media wipeout. Why did South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem delete some of her social media accounts? Could it be a tell for a big announcement ahead? What Mick is hearing on the other side of the break. Plus, if it happens 0.0003% of the time in elections, why are Republicans in this town spending time on it? We're live in the halls of Congress asking that question. And is it really a trash revolution? Big news out of the Big Apple that might have you wondering how on earth this ever became a big deal. You are watching The Hill here on NewsNation. Back in a few. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. You are looking live right now at Trump National Doral. That is the golf club in Florida, just west of Miami International Airport there, where the former president is set to return to the campaign trail later this hour. It comes after more than a week of, relative silence since the debate, which allowed President Biden to grapple with the fallout of his own debate, and Democrats as well. Time now for Hot Mike with Mick. The former congressman, budget director, White House chief of staff, tells us what he's hearing, what he's thinking. All right, Mick, Trump reemerging here. Why? He could just stay on the sidelines and sort of let the circus unfold here in Washington. Why is he coming out now?
I don't think he can stay quiet forever.
Right.
If he does one event,
one can pray.
If he does one a week, what's the big deal? And you're not going to get a better environment for Donald Trump to do an event than Doral. People forget this, and I don't know why. You probably know this. You're from that part of the world. Mm-hmm. This is Little Caracas. This is where all the Venezuelan expatriates have gone.
Big Venezuelan community.
Huge Trump supporters. Whenever we wanted to sort of do something to sort of pump him up and and get him in front of a good home crowd, we would go to Doral. He loves being there. It's a great place to do an event, and it is the locale. The people who live around there who are going to show up, huge Trump fans. So it's something for him to do as opposed to stay at Mar-a-Lago tonight. I don't think it's negative. I don't think he's going to say anything outrageous tonight that's going to get in Joe Biden's way. But you're not going to expect him to do nothing for the next 4 months.
You think last time we see him before the convention, or a couple times more, because that's the big.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think he's going to be in Mar-a-Lago, I think, until Monday or Tuesday. Is that what it comes down to? Yeah. So this is the last real public thing, I think, on the agenda.
All right. The South Dakota governor, Kristi Noem, just deleted her official accounts on X and Facebook over the weekend. Didn't really give an explanation why. It comes after the governor, as you might know, faced a wave of controversy for admitting that she shot her 14-month-old puppy in her book, No Going Back. Mick?
You said that with a straight face. That's just fantastic.
It's hard.
I couldn't get through that, and I wasn't even saying it.
I'm a trained pro. So here, speaking of trained pros, so reporters back in the day, what we used to do before vice presidential announcements is go through Wikipedia. Because when they start altering the Wikipedia pages, that's when you go, maybe they're trying to put a good presence on for when they become the vice president, right? Who's Sarah Palin? You go to Wikipedia, for example. So I saw Kristi Noem today doing that. I thought to myself, I don't know, Mick.
And I'm
not saying it's
and you're right to raise an eyebrow. Harken back to yesterday when Ashley was sitting in that chair, and what did she say? If Trump is really worried that it might be Harris at the top of the ticket, might he change gears on a vice president and look more towards a younger woman? I think Ashley probably had Nikki Haley in mind.
Yep.
But we haven't talked much about Kristi Noem in the last couple of weeks, ever since she shot her dog. And again, I'm trying to get through it. After 14 months is kind of iffy, right? Anyway, and I was one of
the dog's dead.
I was one of the first to say it probably takes her off the first tier, and I've been sort of slotting her as Secretary of Energy, Secretary of the Interior, something like that. She and Trump are still very close. They like each other. They worked well together. I got to think that maybe this does move her back up half a tier based on what Ashley said yesterday.
So, story I saw out today, which is about J.D. Vance and his facial hair, and maybe the possibility that could preclude him from being Trump's vice president. Look, we don't know who Donald Trump's going to pick. You know this. You get traded to the New York Yankees, you go play to the New York Yankees, you shave off the beard. That's just what they do in the pinstripes, right? Is there something to this?
Bolden and I are having a conversation with the old people at the table. Do you remember Jimmy the Greek Snyder?
Yes.
Okay. He was a famous sports bettor. Yeah. He made his name for himself back in the 1950s when he bet a bunch of money on Harry Truman beating, I don't remember what Dewey's first name was, because it was before I was born. But he did that based on private research he did at the time that said American suburban women don't trust a man with facial hair. And Dewey had a mustache at the time, one of the very few, I think, since Lincoln, one of the first people to have facial hair. And I've always wondered in the back of my mind, does that still hold? And are there folks out there doing this research on J.D. Vance saying, you know what, he's okay, but maybe he'll look better without the beard? Be curious to see if it goes away.
Interesting.
I have talked to some folks that inside the J.D. Vance camp who think that maybe the beard is going away in the next couple of days.
Well, look, New York Yankees, Garrett Cole will pay him $300 million. He shaves the beard. If you want to be vice president, Johnny Damon, you shave it. If you want to be vice president, I guess you shave it. Interesting little question.
I'm finding this whole conversation offensive. As a beard wearer myself.
All right, we'll move on then, Brad. By the way, turn into another governor.
You and I are just lazy. He's actually got the beard.
Gretchen Whitmer, Mick, she spent the past week shutting down all talk of her potentially replacing, if Joe Biden steps down as the Democratic nominee. But she also has the release of a new book, and she's doing some press about it. And here's what she said. She said, Michigan is a must-win for President Biden, but the latest DDHQ poll shows that Trump has a 1-point lead. She was asked about the state of the race earlier today. Listen.
I think Michigan is always going to be a state that you can't take your eye off of. It's always going to be a close race. So as I've told people, don't clutch your pearls when you see a poll where we're down 2 points. Don't celebrate when we're up 2 points. Roll up your sleeves and let's do the work. And I think that's why we've been so successful.
She's releasing a book. Kristi Noem released a book.
I can't wait until 2028.
When all this actually plays out.
There's going to be 16 people on the Republican side and 16 people on the Democrat side. You get a chance to see this generational change. It'll be fun to watch.
Interesting. All right. That is Hot Mike with Mick. Thank you, sir. Still much more ahead. Here on the Hill, he is the governor of Texas. He is in Asia but millions in his state right now are without power. So why is he abroad? And a live look at Capitol Hill, where for the first time in quite some time, it was Democrats rather, not Republicans having to answer for their leader. The big story here in Washington at the bottom of the hour when The Hill on NewsNation returns. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. Live look right there. Capitol Hill, as you can see, where tonight, for the first time in quite some time, it is Democratic lawmakers, not Republicans, being swarmed to see if they support their political leader or not. Now, lawmakers returned today after their 4th of July break, and the day for Democrats included closed-door meetings to hash out where they all stand. So far tonight, 7 Democratic lawmakers, all in the House, say they think President Biden's candidacy should end, but many more are standing behind the leader of the party. Our Joe Khalil spent the day walking the halls of Congress, pressing Democrats on their position. Joe K joins us live from the center of one of the biggest questions across this country tonight. Joe?
Yeah, it was a crucial day for House Democrats and Senate Democrats, both meeting separately behind closed doors to consider this question, whether or not they still think President Biden is mentally and physically fit, capable enough to take the case to Donald Trump and remain the nominee. Clearly not a consensus among Democrats. Certainly that was the case in the Senate. And take a listen to what we heard from House Democrats. Even those who say they still support President Biden, none of them are saying they're necessarily enthusiastic or excited about his candidacy, Blake. What they're saying is, stating fact, he is the nominee and we need to win. Take a listen.
President Joe Biden and Vice President Harris are our ticket. And we have one objective, and this is to win for the American people in November.
He can't win, and my colleagues need to recognize that.
As long as he keeps showing up and fighting and showing us that he has the strength, we're going to keep supporting him.
So, Blake, what we heard from Senate Democrats today was that they were asked, is there a consensus right now, one way or another? They basically responded by saying the consensus is Donald Trump is a threat. Translation, no. They have not come to a consensus on the Biden question. Senator Peter Welch from Vermont saying to us, we've got a long ways to go.
Hey, Joe, real quick, did they want to talk to you today, Democratic members? We try to book them all the time on this show, and I know a lot of them just simply don't want to do TV right now. I wonder what you experienced in person.
By and large, no. The ones who want to talk generally come out on the steps, and we can approach them. Many, when the camera's on, no. When the camera's not on and it's just me, more so, yes. But it's the reverse, as you've been saying. We've been chasing Republicans around for months, so you know it's a different feel these days.
Joe K. in the Capitol hallways. Joe, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
To defend Democrats a little bit here, if you're really trying to push a message to the White House, you don't want to be seen gloating about it on TV right now. Now's the time for the inter-party discussions. I think you're seeing them play out. I think two things to note from the images you showed on the screen. There was no Black Caucus member on that list of folks that are calling for the president to step aside, and there's no U.S. senator. And I think as long as those two things hold true, like getting the Black Caucus to come out and strongly support Joe Biden was the kill shot to stop this.
Why is that? We had Congresswoman Brown, who's a member from Ohio, Democrat, on the show last night, Scott. And so why is the Congressional Black Caucus? There's a few dozen members, right? Give or take.
The largest caucus.
No.
More than that?
There must be 40 or 50 now.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Why are they in mass standing behind the president?
I think, based on what I've heard them say, is that they've been talking to their constituents, and their constituents, whether they're black, brown, yellow, or green, are saying they're riding with Biden, if you will, and they're still behind the president, and they really think in their jurisdictions that Biden is being unfairly treated, if you will, for one debate. And so I think they're reflecting what their voters are telling them, and those voters is a big part of that coalition that's going to have Biden elected when he wins.
And the two things the Black Caucus tends to value is loyalty and seniority. And in those two cases, for those two reasons alone, that's the main reasons why they're sticking by Biden. They still think he's the best chance to put forward a victory.
And by the way, the Democrats in those meetings, they're honoring, not discussing who said what in those meetings and what actually was discussed in those meetings, which I think is pretty unique.
That's not true at all.
No, that's
you can ask Capitol Hill reporters. It is coming out right now.
Well,
who said
not
what in
publicly.
what meetings. There are three senators
publicly.
that has been reported saying they don't think that Joe Biden can win at the top of the ticket from those closed-door meetings. Let me tell you, having worked on Capitol Hill and stood in those meetings, you can read Twitter in real time and know exactly what's going on.
And members leak, not staff.
To be fair, it's likely both, but I will tell you, you can read in real time. And I got to tell you,
I'm not ready to withdraw my comment
It's
yet.
got to be a fun day to be a Republican in the House right now, because I just saw three members tweet a photo of them standing outside the Speaker's office saying, hey, this is the first time we've
it is the first time. So as we were sitting here and Joe K was talking, Mick slides his cell phone to me across the table, and I'm like, what's on Mulvaney's cell phone that he wants to share with me? You just received a fundraising email from Donald Trump. Let's show the live pictures if we have them. It's a standard fundraising email that was just sent out, and it says what, Mick?
Will I announce my VP pick in 60 minutes? It's a Trump rally alert. I need to make sure you're watching. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss this.
Okay, so you know him as well, not as well as Don Jr., but you probably know him as well as anyone that we know. Do you think that's just hype, or do you think we're going to get something here? I don't know why he would change the media narrative.
Why tonight for a relatively small audience when half the country is going to be watching, or at least a bigger audience is going to be watching next week in Milwaukee? So I get it. I like the tease. I mean, they're really, really good at what they do, but I can't see that happening tonight.
When do you think it's coming? It's got to come before Monday, I think.
Why not Wednesday night? Why not?
The day off. Okay.
Why?
I've just seen reporting that indicated like it needed to be done like and slated before convention started. I don't know if that's
I don't
because when they officially nominate,
I'll ask.
They got to start. When they start floor proceedings, you have to.
I will find out from the RNC what the rules
probably
are.
glued to Flight Tracker
to see where all the planes are going.
They're all coming anyway.
We've gone from Wikipedia to Flight Tracker, but here we are.
2012, I worked for Paul Ryan. I remember when he was the pick, and they had his house staked out. He lived at a corner lot, though, in Wisconsin, and he went out the back door instead of the front, and they missed him.
I was being serious. Wikipedia and Flight Tracker, those are real things at this point in time. All right, also on Capitol Hill today, Republicans are taking claims of non-citizens voting in elections front and center. The House will vote tomorrow on the SAVE Act. That would, for example, require states to obtain proof of U.S. citizenship when registering people to vote, mandate states to establish programs to remove non-citizens from voter rolls, and allow non-citizens to bring civil suits against elected officials, now upholding the law. Now, it is already illegal, we should note, for non-citizens to vote in federal elections. No state allows non-citizens to vote in statewide elections, and non-citizens can vote in local elections in just a handful of areas across this country. Joining us now is a supporter of the SAVE Act. She is the Republican Congresswoman from the state of Florida, back here on the Hill, Congresswoman Laurel Lee. Congresswoman, thanks for being with us. Once again, explain to me, why are you spending time on this?
Well, it's important for several reasons. First off, we know that there are a lot of states that want to be following the law, that means that non-citizens can't vote. But right now, they don't have the resources that they need to verify citizenship. And courts have even held that the Voting Rights Act prevents them from verifying citizenship when someone registers to vote. So what the SAVE Act does is ensure that state and local election officials can actually follow the law that says federal elections are limited to U.S. citizens. And frankly, it's something that really everyone should be behind. Our elections are for U.S. citizens. They are the only people who are lawfully entitled to vote. And this bill will make sure that election officials can actually access resources like the Social Security database and the Homeland Security databases that verify citizenship status.
Here's the White House, Congresswoman. The bill would do nothing to safeguard our elections, but it would make it much harder for all eligible Americans to register to vote. The evidence is clear that the current laws to prevent non-citizens from voting are working as intended. I just read you what the standard is across this country. There's the White House. Why do we need new laws?
Well, that's just not accurate. First of all, we do know that there are non-citizens on voter rolls and that there are non-citizens who have voted in our elections. And
so
not
here
every
are the
election is a
numbers, though,
Congresswoman. We have a lot of elections that are very close.
I want to jump in because here are the numbers. In 2022, the Georgia voter roll, an audit there found that there were 1,634 cases of potential non-citizens trying to vote out of millions. None actually voted. In 2016, a survey of 49 states found only 2 possible non-citizen voting cases out of 137 million votes. 2016 as well, election study. Non-citizen voting accounted for 0.0001% in 42 jurisdictions that has a heavy immigrant population. You're chasing the 0.0001% here, an asteroid, 1 in 300,000 of hitting Earth, being struck by lightning, 1 in 15,300, or about 230 people per year. That's what you're chasing here, Congresswoman, are you not?
Well, no, that is not right. Right now, election officials can't even access these databases to check. They have no way of determining whether the people on their voter rolls are citizens or not, and neither do the groups that you're using to come up with those statistics. This is a problem that cannot even be defined until we give state election officials the tools, the resources, and the ability to verify citizenship. And in a situation where we have 9 million people who've crossed our southern border in the last several years, we need to be able to just, all we want to do is follow the law. This isn't about making voting difficult. This is about making voting secure, that only the people who are legally entitled to vote can cast those ballots. And that should not be a partisan question. That should be something that every voter, every candidate, and every election official can get behind.
Is there a widespread problem in this country as you see it, and do you have evidence for it?
Well, one widespread problem we have is that we know that we have some state and local election officials who want to follow this law, who want to check for citizenship, who want to verify that their voter rolls are accurate and up to date. And right now they can't do it. And so in Congress, we want to make sure that we're equipping them and giving them the opportunity to do that.
Congresswoman Laurel Lee, thanks for coming on. Appreciate the time. I'm sure we'll catch you back here soon here on the Hill.
Always great to see you.
You got it. All right, still to come here from the Hill on NewsNation. Is this what a multi-million-dollar idea gets you? The brilliant idea that maybe you might want garbage bins to throw out the trash? Why is this actually being called a revolution in America's largest city? We'll explain. And he is the biggest YouTuber out there, nearly 300 million subscribers. Does Mr. Beast have his eyes on the White House? Do you know who he is and how influential he is? He's talking politics. We'll tell you what he said when the Hill returns.
Special guest Bill O'Reilly on Cuomo.
I know a lot, Cuomo, and you'd be very wise to listen very closely.
Toe to toe on TV's liveliest, most honest debate.
Can't wait till the next time I see you.
Tomorrow at 8, 7 Central, only on NewsNation.
Initiative to clean up his city's streets. The mayor unveiling the city's first official trash bins.
Welcome to our trash revolution.
Welcome to our trash revolution. What'd you see there? What'd you hear there? Start with you, Mulvaney.
I live in the country. My wife just went to the dump yesterday. I have no idea what you city people are doing.
Brad.
No, I think it's smart. They have a huge rat population in New York. This is going to help. July, the trash is piled high, and it stinks, so good timing.
A trash revolution. I mean, kudos on the branding and a little bit of the teaching people how to use the trash can, too. Go get them, New York.
I want to invest money in the company that produced it.
There you go. That's the scene in New York. All right, now heading down to the state of Texas, where at least 7 people are dead tonight. Millions still without power after Hurricane Beryl ravaged the Houston area. Triple-digit heat expected to scorch Houston and surrounding areas. As officials say, it could take a week for some to get the power back on. Now, this also comes as the governor in that state, Greg Abbott, faces criticism for taking a trip to Asia to lead an economic development mission. Abbott posting pictures on X showing him meeting with officials in South Korea and Taiwan as residents in his home state try to figure out what's next. His absence leaving the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, in charge of hurricane response there. The president spoke with the Lieutenant Governor today. I don't know why you become governor if you are going to be half a world away when stuff like this happens, Brad.
This is a terrible look for the governor. I mean, it was a terrible look for Ted Cruz when
Cancun Cruz when he went.
To be clear, speaking on behalf of a friend who lives in Houston and a lot of Houston residents, it's not just this lack of response to this storm. It is the repeated failure of the state of Texas to respond to this situation. They had the derecho recently where they lost power again. They had the last flooding incident, and the infrastructure has yet to be fixed. I used to work for the mayor of New Orleans.
During Katrina. So you have
not during Katrina.
Right after. So you have experience.
But a lot of this is in prevention. Like the way you get ahead of a lot of these disasters is prevention. You clear out the storm drains, you cut the trees, you reinforce the power lines. None of that is being done right now. And for Texas to constantly brag about its grid, it has failed again and again for its residents.
How do you defend the governor?
I think it's a tough position to be in, but I think what you need to do, if he is abroad and getting him home is a difficult task or whatever it may be, he was already abroad or whatever the case is. Now, hey, I'm just going to give you my opinion on how you would best handle this, Scott, and maybe you can disagree.
Can I go next?
You can go next.
I can go next. Let's go.
But you need to show that he's still on top of the job, even if he's half a world away. Maybe he isn't in Texas, but have video, have photos, show him connecting with the people in Texas and try to get him back as fast as you possibly can.
Hey, Mick, here's the deal. You've been in politics a long time. We've seen this story before.
Yep.
And politicians, okay, here's the deal. You've been in politics a long time, right? We've seen this over and over again. It never works. It never works. The image and the politics of this, and politicians that continue to do it, I think is rooted in arrogance more than anything.
If I'm his chief of staff, I hit him over the head with a baseball bat, drag him onto the airplane, and take him home.
Right.
Period. End of story.
You
cannot win this
battle.
No, I agree, but I'm going to try to put a Band-Aid over a bullet hole on that.
The ironic part about a lot of this,
Mick.
The ironic part about a lot of this is there's a lot of Texas politicians that want to run for president.
Yeah.
Cruz
He's
and Abbott are both one of them. And to make these kind of disastrous PR decisions,
excuse the pun.
I mean, look, when you say heck of a job, Brownie, we know of the George W. Bush moment, and you wonder to that point.
Well,
if he wants
and
to
the
run
racial
for
politics
president,
involved in
stuff like
Houston
this.
being a predominantly black and Hispanic city creates a whole other level of criticism.
All right, meantime, how about this? YouTube's biggest star, he is the biggest by far, Mr. Beast, is teasing his hundreds of millions of followers, yes, hundreds of millions of followers, with his latest comments on the presidential election. The content creator, whose real name is Jimmy Donaldson, posting on social media, quote, "If we lower the age to run for president, I will jump in the race." The post getting nearly 31 million views, 570,000 likes, but the billionaire, yes, only 26. Now, you need to be, of course, a natural-born citizen, and 35 to run for president under the Constitution. You've worked with him,
I've
right?
met him, yes.
Yeah, I
Didn't
mean,
know who he was until I showed him.
This is the biggest star on arguably the biggest platform.
Yeah.
And he's talking politics.
He is, and that's something that he and his team have actually tried to steer away from, is getting him involved in politics, because it does alienate so much of his base. But I think the counter-argument to this is the way that there is an entry level. You got to be 35 to run for president.
Right.
We should also be considering that there should be an age limit on this as well. If you got an entry fee, you should have an exit one as well.
And you lead me. No, sorry. You can
There's also a lot of talks to lower the voting age to 16. So maybe we can do it all at once.
At 16, I should not have been.
I would have been a good voter at 16.
All right, let's leave with this live look right now. Doral, Florida. That's the greater Miami area. Donald Trump set to host a rally here at any moment. It comes here at 7 o'clock Eastern, 7 Eastern, of course, on the East Coast, just an hour after President Biden spoke here in Washington to NATO leaders, the 75th anniversary of NATO. And quite the split screen, I guess, we're going to see here now, with Trump out on the trail, the President of the United States speaking to NATO leaders. Mick, what do you expect here from Donald Trump as all of the attention, or much of it, is on Joe Biden?
I'm going to guess here. By the way, I'm always fascinated when I watch these speeches, and I still watch them from time to time, the stuff that's on the teleprompter versus the stuff where he's just riffing. And that's always insightful to me, because the teleprompter is the stuff that they've pre-cooked, they've agreed on it. It's the message. The riffing is what he really wants to talk about. So my guess is you're going to see some commentary tonight about how Donald Trump is able to do what he's doing and Joe Biden isn't. He goes, look, I'm sitting here, I'm talking. I don't need the teleprompter. It's here, but I don't need it. I'm going to sit here and talk to you folks because I can do it. Sleepy Joe can't even give a regular speech without a teleprompter. I expect these comparisons to continue.
And speaking of comparisons, what we'll see, I think, in the upcoming 4 months is Democrats wanting to talk about Project 2025, Republicans wanting to talk about current command.
It's all about contrast. That's politics.
There you go. Other side of the break, host of On Balance, Leland Vitter, joins us live here on The Hill. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. Live look right now, Trump National Doral, that is in the Miami, Florida area, where the former president expected to take the stage any moment now for a campaign rally. One of Trump's leading vice presidential candidates, Senator Marco Rubio, will be joining him tonight. And it comes as Trump could be announcing his running mate soon, most likely, potentially, ahead of the Republican National Convention, which starts next week.
Well, he kind of has to
do it before then, right? Okay. So it's like the clock is running. You got to wonder, though, if you're Trump, you would think you want to do it as late as possible to keep the attention as much as possible on Biden and Democrats here in Washington.
Right. And for the first time in his political career, Donald Trump is stepping back and actively
unfold.
And interestingly enough, we're going to talk about this during the show. There are Biden people who are complaining that Trump isn't out enough.
Yeah.
Where is he?
We want more Trump. You never really have Democrats.
Right. And it's very smart. So, yeah, why announce your running mate right now and give somebody for Democrats to talk about? He actually doesn't have to announce it until Wednesday of convention. And that used to happen, right, when you had brokered conventions.
He's got some time here. And it's a fascinating dynamic here in Washington where the first time it's Democrats